Welcome to our MetaShip classroom. My name is Camilo Reyes. I'm a satellite space systems engineer. I recently joined Meta Visionaries, and today I want to talk with you about the CubeSats and the CubeSat revolution. Let's start about what is a CubeSat. Well, CubeSats are literally small satellites the size of a small cube, 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters, as you can see here in the slide. And usually they weigh around like 1.33 kilograms, more or less like 3 pounds. And the CubeSat revolution literally started like not more than 20 years ago. In the 2000s at Stanford University and San Luis Obispo, professors and students came together just to do hands-on experience on how to build a spacecraft, because they were studying aerospace engineering and doing all this cool research, but they didn't have the experience on hands-on on how to build satellites. So they started like building all these is small cubes as a technological demonstration. Nevertheless, when they saw the potential market opportunities for this, they started to actually building satellites for more serious stuff. As you can see here in the slide, for example, we have different sizes of satellites. We have the 1U CubeSat, and the 1U is just the standard unit, right? When we talk about units, we talk about the cube of 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. That's the dimension of 1U. And when we talk about 3U CubeSat, 6U CubeSat, we are talking about a pile of 6 cubes or three cubes or 12 cubes, depending on the volume. And you may be asking, what makes the size of a small satellite? Well, all lands on the mission requirement. What is your mission? What do you want to achieve? That's the volume. The volume is always tied to the mission requirements. In the slide, you can see that we have different types of small satellites. We have the femto satellites, which are usually like a ship that we launch into the ionosphere or into low Earth orbit just to do quick research. And then they don't last long because of their radiation of the low Earth orbit. Then we have the pico satellites, which are usually called pocket cubes. The pocket cubes are the size of 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters. They are the half of one CubeSat. And then we have nano satellites. So CubeSats are the same as nano satellites, and that's the category. And usually this category is always tied to the mass. So if your 3U CubeSat is, for example, it weighs 10 kilograms, then we are talking about a nanosatellite. Nevertheless, if your 6U CubeSat weighs, I don't know, 15 kilograms, then it's not a nanosatellite anymore. It's a microsatellite. Then this means that your mass defines the category of your small satellite. And in this graph, you can see that most of the CubeSats that we are using nowadays that are launched into low Earth orbit are 3U CubeSats, and usually the applications are for Earth observation. But you might be wondering, okay, so we are familiar with the super big, massive satellites. What about the small ones? Well, in fact, the small ones have the same system architecture as the big ones. Remember what I mentioned before about the students and professors in Stanford and San Luis Obispo building small satellites? Well, they were literally using the same system architecture as the big ones. We have the payload, which is usually the science or telecommunication. We have the subsystems, and the subsystems are all the components that made these small satellites. We have the ACDS, the attitude determination and control, the onboard data handling. We have the power subsystem. For example, if you see, do you see this satellite like flying around us, you see that satellite over there flying around our classroom? Well, if you see, the solar panels are part of the power subsystem, and maybe this, if you can see that in the side of the satellite, this satellite has a patch antenna. So there are different ways to communicate with a satellite, and we have like the normal antennas that look like little fins that goes out of the satellite. That's one. That's for U-shape, V-shape systems. But we also have a patch antenna, and both of them made the communication subsystem. Some satellites, for example, you have propulsion system. They have thrusters when they want to So now you can see here in the middle of our room, we have this satellite you see here. So you see like the solar panels, and then if you look closer, we can see the different subsystems. We have the patch antenna that I was mentioning before, and this model doesn't have the propulsion system. But so, for example, when we want to relocate the satellite in other altitudes, we usually use propulsion. We use thrusters. So even small satellites can have a propulsion system. Um, so as you can see, for example, here in the middle, you see like that, this cylinder, you see this cylinder here, that for this model, that's the payload, that's the camera. And that means that this specific model is used for Earth observation. But if we go further into details, for example, you can see here in this image, the system architecture of a 1U CubeSat. You see the antennas that I was mentioning before. This is for communication with the ground. Um, you have the electrical power subsystem. Those are basically the batteries. So, for example, if you see here in this model, the batteries are located. Let me see. Are located in one of the sides. You see here, those are the batteries. And well, here in the slide, you can see the structure. You see the onboard computer. You see the attitude control. And what is the attitude control? Well, basically, that is what determines the position of the satellite with respect of an axis system. For example, this, if I want to do this movement in a space, I need an attitude control system. So that system allows me to have a full control of the satellite and to fulfill my mission. And if we talk about the evolution, guys, well, you might be wondering, but okay, we have these small satellites, and we are usually familiar with the big, for example, Copernicus satellites. Can do the same. Well, actually, small satellites can do exactly the same. It's just a matter of the application. As you can see in this graph, like from 2010, we have been in an increase of the different applications. At the beginning, they were just for technological demonstration, for educational purposes. Nevertheless, nowadays, these small satellites are being launched for Earth science and for Earth observation, and they are usually launched in big constellation, like for example the Dove constellation from Planet, or even maybe I can even incorporate into this category is the Starlink constellation from SpaceX. Although the Starlink are bigger satellites, are actually, they land actually into the category of micro satellites, but they are still into the small satellites category. And you can see that in this graph, in 2021, most of the satellites were launched for Earth observation. And this what tell us? Well, this is actually the evolution. We were just at the beginning where we were just launching big satellites, and then when we wanted to talk about miniaturization, we were just doing some little research with the femto satellites. Nowadays, most of the satellites that are launching to space are from the microsatellites. And what this means that actually we are nowadays we are launching a lot of satellites. If we take into consideration the Starlink constellation, we're launching 80% of the small satellites are for telecommunication purposes. Nevertheless, a big portion are for remote sensing, that means for Earth observation, and also for technological development. And if you look in deeper into this, what does this mean? Well, we are enhancing the global economy, the global space economy. This means that these little guys that we have now here in space, they are enhancing the global economy. In fact, the space industry nowadays is worth like more than $371 billion. That taking into consideration like all, of course, the ground equipment, the satellite services, the also non-satellite industry are using satellite services. And if we put all that together, Earth observation, even military, all of that, we put all that together, that's worth 371 billion. That means that these little guys over here that at the beginning were used just for educational purposes are bringing added value in a monetary sense. So we have now large businesses being built that's based on these small guys over here. And with that, if there are no further questions, I want to thank you guys for your attention. And of course, you are always welcome to join us here at Meta Visionaries for this small talk. Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you. Thank you. That was a pleasure. Okay.